MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, discussion, debate, and analysis. It's our mission to make it the very best that you will find. College football across the board. Please lock it in right here. All right, John, in regards to the ACC race, is there really anything to dive into? I certainly did the deep dive earlier this week. I went through all the Power Fives, all the conference championship scenarios, and with the ACC, you got to start giving losses to teams that you're not expecting to, i.e. Notre Dame and Clemson, of course, to get Miami and an extra step to get North Carolina in play. And I went through those type of calisthenics, but even if Notre Dame loses this game, they've got they're in position because of the common opponent's edge over Miami to still play in the championship game.
Yeah, so that's exactly how I see it too. You know, I think the big leverage point here is if Notre Dame does lose, say, to North Carolina, then your wiggle room in that ACC title game discussion in regards to the playoff is gone. Because then you would have the one loss. You lose to Clemson with Lawrence back. Now you have two. You're out. The really interesting dynamic here is what happens if Notre Dame goes in undefeated, plays Clemson tough with Lawrence back and their defensive players healthier, loses, but it's a good game. That's where I think this gets really interesting. How do you stack up an 11-1 Notre Dame at that point with some of these other teams? Or I don't know, 7-0 Oregon, who would have played nobody to win that conference. You're going to put them in over 11-1 Notre Dame with the win over the number one team. So that's where I think this gets really tricky. But Notre Dame has none of that leeway if they don't take care of business Friday. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. It's a bizarre position to be in, but just thinking about conference title games and Notre Dame and even having flexibility. Usually Notre Dame loses their biggest marquee game of the year. You could pretty much mark them out of the playoff. We have more flexibility now we're not used to. So it's strange. Take care of business Friday, control your own destiny, maximize your ways to get into the playoff.
Yeah, I really don't think that a second Big Ten team factors into it. The Big 12's out of it. As you mentioned, the champion in the Pac-12 is going to have to go undefeated, and that's most likely Oregon, possibly USC, to make it through and be considered. But the real straight-on comparison that is a difficult one for me to separate would be a Florida win over Alabama in the SEC championship game. And then let's say Ohio State takes care of business. They're in. Clemson takes care of business, having defeated, obviously, Notre Dame to create this scenario. Then it's Florida as the SEC champ with one loss. And then you've got an Alabama versus Notre Dame situation.
Yeah, I mean, if it's going to be Alabama then, right? Like just based on their history. And
it shouldn't be. We should be looking at these year to year.
But I don't think that's how the committee operates. Like Notre Dame, Alabama has so much built-in credibility that if we're in that situation, I 100% expect Alabama to go. I just do. And you could say that's right or wrong, fair or not fair, but look at Alabama's history in the playoff and you look at Notre Dame, Alabama's a safer bet. So that's how I think they look at it sometimes. And Alabama's going to get that call, I believe.
If we would get that situation, maybe to make it even more interesting, if Northwestern prevails in the Big Ten with little respect from anyone, but they're an undefeated Big Ten champ, they have to get a spot, regardless of what people think of Northwestern and what they're going to do in a playoff.
Yeah, you got the Fighting Fitzgeralds, man. It's it's if that happened, but I just don't see that happening. Like we have these scenarios. I don't see a situation where Ohio State loses to Northwestern. I just don't. Under no circumstances could I see that happening. Northwestern is a team. They don't have elite talent, all that stuff, but they're gonna fight hard till the end. Against Ohio State, I just think the talent will override that. I really do.
Yeah, they did play 2 years ago in the Big Ten championship game, and it was a 21-point game. All right. Talking with John Kennedy here. Check him out on Always Irish. Where can people find that?
YouTube's the easiest place. You can find me there, any audio platform. So we have the video shows on YouTube, and then I dub them over to audio. So wherever you listen to your podcasts, Twitter, just search Always Irish. You'll find me there as well.
John, I would think after all these years, you would have some type of mental approaches that you go through to make yourself actually be able to enjoy a Thanksgiving before you turn the clock over, you get into Friday. I'm hoping that's the case.
Yeah, it's Thursday's going to be rough. I'm going to be pacing around. I'm not going to be myself. I'm not going to have my normal appetite. Mark, I'm not a normal guy. This is just what happens, okay? So I'm going to be pacing around, and with the family, it's just going to be the elephant in the room, and nobody's going to want to bring it up and ruin a nice dinner with other company. But it's this kind of seems like it, Mark, because I just don't see Notre Dame dropping to Syracuse and Wake. And so I just think this is it. And if Notre Dame, I don't care. This is one of those games where I don't really care how it looks like. We're at the point of the year where I'm not looking for style points. Get this win and just keep it moving to give yourself the maximum flexibility at the end of the year for your options. So they just got to find a way. I love Clark Lee, Notre Dame's defensive coordinator. He's at a half a month now to figure out some way to at least slow that offense down enough on the other side to take care of business. But it's going to be high anxiety, but that's what we live for. I love the anxiety. It recedes my hairline, but I wouldn't want it any other way.
Good stuff. John, we appreciate you stopping by as always.
Thanks, Mark. Happy Thanksgiving. Take care.